Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France, of course. You good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa, the Big C Squad. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful January 20th, 2020. Grando Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, so much for the hype and build-up of playoff championship weekend, and everything landed with a thud, just like Derrick Henry on the ground. But, I mean, everybody's anticipating the Super Bowl in 2 weeks from Miami. What are we going to do in the middle of that for football?
I think they got this thing called DVRs. I'm going to be watching a lot of DVRs. Or if you're like a lot of other people, we can watch the impeachment process with POTUS. He doesn't believe it's happening, though, Big C. Or I think there's a guy named, there's Meghan Markle and I mean, Harry. Is it Harry? They're trying to get rid of the monarchy. They want to make money on their own, Big C. It's all Fred Levin Warrior thoughts.
Well, hey, if you can go out there and get a paycheck with an honest day pay.
Yeah.
I mean, Harry is a former military man, Charlton, so he knows a lot about public service, and he's been a spokesperson around the world his entire life. So I don't think he'll have a hard time making a dime. Everybody will invite him in.
Everybody will invite him in. And plus, who needs a few $1 million given to you anyway? I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Big C Sports also powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can also follow Big C Sports Podcast on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, and Fire TV, and a lot of other smart TVs all over the universe. So everybody knows, before we get into the football, because I thought the football environment in San Francisco, Santa Clara was amazing. It was also amazing in Kansas City, Arrowhead Stadium, just all the great things going on. But before we get into that, I just want to say, today is Martin Luther King Day. And before we give out our military hotline for our veterans, there's a lot of times where we maybe forget what Dr. King sacrificed just so we could all have our freedoms. And I want to give out the hotline, and then I want to come back on Dr. King. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or they can text 838-255. That's 838-255. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, it's so important as we celebrate Dr. King's birthday today, Charlton. We celebrate our veterans every day in this country. And we think about the sacrifices that both of them made, Dr. King as well as our veterans. Our veterans, though, that are still surviving, Charlton, need constant help.
Yeah.
They need help from civil service. They need help from other agencies. Suicide has become a horrific disease with our veterans in this country, Charlton. Our National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is out there for outreach. But we got to find a way to get those veterans an opportunity for outreach, getting them cell phones. This is something that the country and every public citizen should think about doing. Instead of saying thank you, think about ways to get our veterans cell phones so that they can call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number.
Very well said. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or they can text 838-255. That's 838-255 and get some help. Today, Dr. King would have been 91 years old, Big C. And I know oftentimes people will have a march and we'll say a lot of good things about what Dr. King did and what he means to so many people. And I just really appreciate the fact that growing up as a young African-American boy, he was always a topic of conversation in my own household. And then being around the church, there's so many people that always talked about that. I remember in 1983, former President Ronald Reagan officially declared Martin Luther King Jr. Day a national holiday. But it wasn't until 1986 that it was celebrated that way. And since then, the holiday has allowed many Americans the day off to remember the legacy of the great civil rights leader. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I was alive during that unfortunate time in Black American history, Charlton, when Dr. King was assassinated. And it was a horrific feeling for every African American, Charlton, for a man who was fighting so much for equality for his people that people felt a threat from it from other races, that he never fought with violence. He was always about nonviolence.
Yeah.
And he brought and sought opportunities for African American people, Charlton, for fair wages, for fair housing. And America fought back against that, just like we've seen against America fighting back against Colin Kaepernick. When people speak out for opportunities and equality for black people, everyone feels that that's something wrong and a challenge against society.
Yeah.
I don't still understand today why there's such a fight back. There's only 49 states that still that celebrate Dr. King's birthday.
Yeah.
The state of Mississippi does not recognize Dr. King's birthday. They recognize Andrew Jackson Day. They still represent the Civil War and segregation in Mississippi. They don't recognize a black man's plight for what he did trying to bring this country together and lessen the separation divide that we have between cultures.
Yeah.
But as we still struggle today as African Americans, I know everybody wants to celebrate the African American athletes on television, saying, well, how great they're doing and how much money they're making. Look at the average African American, those who don't have a job, those who don't have opportunity, who still live impoverished in this country. Education in this country, Charlton, there's 18% of education in undergrad, in high school and below, that is still segregated in this country. We think that Dr. King fought for equality. And you think about in 2020, 8% of our school-aged children still go to segregated schools.
Wow. That's incredible. I know as a young African-American man, people talk about Black Lives Matter. Well, Dr. King did it first because, and oftentimes I get pushback like you're saying, people say, well, all lives matter. Well, not all people were enslaved, Big C. Not all people were ostracized the way it happened with a lot of African Americans that Dr. King fought for. And of course, he's for everybody. But I really wanted to just take this moment. I know everybody wants to know about the game, and people won the football game and watched the football game, and there were some great games going on over the weekend. But for a lot of the brethren that we have on TV now, I was watching some shows, Big C, and it's amazing how many, African American men now, and women too, I see in this world called broadcast that did not exist on the national level when Dr. King was around, and also the late Billy Graham was around, and they did things to bridge people together. Billy Graham, bailed Dr. King out of jail when other people wouldn't do it. But I look at the progress that we have made as a society. It would have been great if he were around to see some of the things that he fought for, Big C. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, you can say we've made progress as a society, but when you think about the influence of African Americans in this country, Charlton, it's mainly through sports. People look up to African American athletes. They don't look up to African American politicians. You think about LeBron James is celebrated more in this country by whites on average than what our black president Barack Obama was.
Yeah.
Think about that. So when you can celebrate, or even Michael Jordan's name will come up in conversation before Barack Obama, and they were both from Chicago.
Yeah.
So you think about the plight and the growth of African Americans in this country. It is led through athletics. They don't look at us as bona fide leaders off the playing surface, Charlton. They will revel about every African-American athlete, regardless of the sport, whether it's basketball, baseball, and a couple hockey players also, soccer. But why don't we revel about our African-American politicians? We think about what's going on in the White House now. We have an impeachment starting tomorrow. If that had been Barack Obama, President Obama, that would have been over in a day. They would have impeached him. If he had done anything that Donald Trump has done in the presidency, it would have been a scar and set black people back 200 years. They'd have never had an opportunity to have another black elected because they said, we give you an opportunity and this is what you do. Whites, it's normal, Charlton. So as we think about advancement of black society in America, it's through athletics that people see black people. They want to know how big, how fast, how strong they are, not how intelligent they are. And there's many African Americans that are leaders in social society, Charlton, in economic society. But we're never touted about that. We're only touted about our athletics.
Yeah, and that's why God created Big C Sports, so we can be the vanguards of it and not wait for other people to do it for us. I firmly believe in that. It's just like Dr. King. He didn't wait for people to open doors. He didn't wait for people to march. He organized it, and that's what I want to do with Big C Sports. And I know a lot of programs that I did see, a lot of our brethren, they got right into how big and fast, Patrick Mahomes was, and how big and fast, Derrick Henry was. And not a lot was made about Dr. King other than we appreciate Dr. King. But Dr. King, I want to say, like Big C Sports, hugely influential in the American Civil Rights Movement. Despite Big C, he never was a public official. He never held public office, even though he had the respect of public officials, even those that disagreed with him, respected him. I know a lot of times people think about JFK, but JFK was really anti-Dr. King, but he kept pushing through that, and ultimately people came and saw the benefit. So what I appreciate, Big C, is when I do think about Dr. King, it's not just on Martin Luther King's birthday. It's not just in Black History Month. It's like every day to be able to do something and talk to the airways all over the universe. Outside of this great country, I believe the American population is only 4% of the world's population. 4% is very small. So there's a lot more people of color doing great all over the world, in fact, all over the universe, than so here in the United States of America. But I do believe that we do have Big C Sports because of people like Dr. King that spoke up from the pulpits, the African American communities. Mostly it has been the churches that were the political clout, Big C. Now we have President Barack Obama, we have some senators and congressmen and women that are making progress also. But I just appreciate that we have this avenue, and largely, Big C, it was because he had a dream, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he had a dream, Charlton. He had a dream like many African Americans prior to him. I think from slavery on, Charlton, all African Americans had a dream. We celebrate Dr. King for his plight that he sacrificed in pursuit of equality.
Yeah.
The civil rights movement was actually started by Emmett Till's mother. Many people don't remember Emmett Till, but he was a young 14-year-old African-American who was killed down in Mississippi by some white men who alleged that he had whistled at a white woman, which he did not. They came and testified later.
Yeah.
But they tortured this young African-American boy, and his mother held an open casket funeral of her son's mutilated body so the world could see what white people had been doing to black people since time had started in America.
Yeah.
And that started the civil rights movement, Charlton. That pushed every black person over the edge at that point, because you no longer were going to hide behind what people had done and saying, okay, if we come out, people are going to damage us for that. Emmett Till's mother deserves more praise than any African-American woman in American history, more than any woman in American history.
Yeah. Well, we know there's been a lot of things that have happened throughout society, people coming together. I don't want to make it an indictment of all Caucasian, because there's a lot of abolitionists that actually helped African Americans escape to freedom and even pass legislation that made it possible for us to go forward. We have to always go forward, but never forgetting the past. I just appreciate so much of what this country can be. And when you have strong black men that stand up against people who say, well, no, just play sports, I still think about the great Dr. King and wish that he could have, been around to see a lot of progress that was made, after he's passed, obviously, Big C. So, and one more thing, before we get on to the world of sports, Big C, for Dr. Martin Luther King, I know it would have been his 91st birthday. There's so many people that have their own Dr. King in their family, people they love, whether it's a parent, it could be a brother or a sister, it could be someone that reached out to you, an aunt or an uncle, and we have our own opportunity to reach out and help each other and not be that crab in a barrel that a lot of us has been accused of doing in our own communities. Everybody knows right and wrong, but we can always praise Dr. King, but we all have to be that Dr. King in our own families too, Big C. That's so important to me, whether I look at my children or my siblings or especially my parents, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, everybody has to have inspiration every day in their life. I think the greatest blessing that anybody can have, and everybody wants to talk about accomplishments and goals that they have, 99% of your battle every day is waking up. After that, things fall into place. But without waking up, Charlton, on that top side of the dirt, then you don't have an opportunity for any type of achievement with yourself, family, or anything else.
Yep, that's true. So we got to eat healthy, we got to stay healthy, exercise. All those things are so important, and really appreciate it when we can get around to it. Big C, I want to get into these games that we all talk about. I feel a little bit melancholy today because football is almost over. It's like, why would I be melancholy? We're going on to the Super Bowl, Big C, Super Bowl 54. But for me, I see the culmination of a lot of hard work of about 15 to 1,700 men and women that are part of organizations, but about just the hard work that comes into it. And I heard Aaron Rodgers make a statement. He's from Northern California, up in the Chico area. He made a statement that many people have heard before. He said there's only going to be one team standing at the end of this, because people are saying, well, does he have anything left in his tank? My answer is, yeah, he has something left in his tank if they keep giving him a job. But you can clearly see that the new breed of younger, more athletic, stronger athletes, that's the future of NFL, in my opinion. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we did a show at the beginning of the playoffs where we talked about the plight of the quarterbacks in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And we made a mention that would Aaron Rodgers show up? We were still waiting on Aaron Rodgers to have that breakthrough game of the season.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is still, as the season ends, waiting to have that breakthrough game. I think the media has been so in love with Aaron Rodgers, just like they've been in love with Eli Manning, because they have a Super Bowl title.
Yeah.
They don't feel that they've dropped off in their career, but yet Aaron Rodgers didn't have the fear. You know, the mantra for Aaron Rodgers is everybody said, well, he's the guy you want with the ball in his hand
really.
The last 2 minutes. Well, I've seen Aaron Rodgers with the ball in his hand the last 2 minutes many times, Charlton, and not get the job done.
Yeah.
I want the guy who's controlling the ball for the first 58 minutes, because the guy that has it in the last 2 minutes and needs to try to come back means he's been outplayed.
Yeah.
And we've seen that twice with the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers. They played twice this year. Aaron Rodgers was down 50 points between those two games in the first half.
Yeah.
The 49ers outscored Aaron Rodgers by 50 points in two first halves in the two games that they played.
Yeah, we have a little bit of static with the microphone. We're going to work on getting that cleared up. But I do understand, and oftentimes people take what an athlete says and hold it against them. I remember when he was drafted, he mentioned that he was going to make the 49ers regret the fact that they did not choose him. You know, and they chose Alex Smith ahead of him, but that's everybody's choice. Alex Smith came out of Utah, which is now the Pac-10 conference. At that time, I believe they were still part of the Mountain West or the Western Athletic Conference. And of course, Aaron Rodgers came out of the Pac-10 conference at the time. He came by way of Butte Junior College up in the Chico, California area. But it just shows something that I saw last night, and I want to get into two. And let's start with the 49ers game too, because I know that Garoppolo he's the face of the franchise. They want him to be the face of the franchise, but numbers-wise, he's not really. 19 passes or 18 passes in the two games, the two playoff games, divisional game and also NFC Championship game. Ironically, making a joke out of this, Steve Young and Jerry Rice were running around the game throwing passes before. Steve Young threw more passes and played Big C than Garoppolo had in the game. Is he really... they're trying to prove that he's worth $137 million, but they're hiding him for a reason. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, money is irrelevant when we look at the NFL these days. What a guy makes is not about productivity. Aaron Rodgers gets 180.
Yeah.
You know, look where he is today.
Yeah.
He went home. He's not in the playoffs. Jimmy Garoppolo is in the playoffs. So who's justifying who's worth what? Based on numbers and productivity yesterday and the two times these teams have met, Jimmy Garoppolo is worth more than Aaron Rodgers is. What the 49ers are doing, you have to go back to Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
This guy was in the Super Bowl just about 4 or 5 years ago when he was offensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
And they got to the Super Bowl via the pass. But when it came down to crunch time in the big game, they couldn't control the clock.
Yeah.
Because they were a pass-happy team. He learned from his mistakes. So he has Jimmy Garoppolo doing what he needs to do to win a football game. This is the first team in the NFL in about 20 years to run more than they pass. Actually, more than 20, make it 30 years. The last team that did this, Charlton, that ran the ball 60% of the time and only threw it 40% of the time was the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
And they had Craig James as their running back at that time. That's how long it's been since a team had this type of run-pass discrepancy in the NFL. But when you lead the league in rushing in the NFC, and you do it by running the ball, Charlton, and you have this three-headed monster in the backfield, you less prone to make mistakes from your quarterback via interception, getting sacked. You have a less chance of losing yards or having a negative play. And that's what Shanahan has learned. He lost a Super Bowl, Charlton, because he was unwilling to run the football. So if you don't learn from your mistakes, you never advance. Doing the same thing over and over and getting the same results is what ignorance is, Charlton, and he didn't want to be ignorant. He didn't want to be dumb.
Yeah.
Well, he grew from that. So he left off Matt Ryan, came to San Francisco, built a running attack. If you look at that offensive lineman, that was an emphasis. That defensive line was an emphasis in putting the team together.
Yeah.
He also has players that he had in Atlanta. He has his starting center. Tevin Coleman, until he got hurt in the game, was from Atlanta with him. Also a tight end, Tua Tagovailoa, is also from Atlanta. So he brought remnants of what he learned in Atlanta, brought it to San Francisco, and retooled it.
And retooled. It's still a lot, $137 million to hand off. But when you got a guy in the background, and that you think about Raheem Mostert, Big C, I guess you would say he's the least heralded 49er as far as the running backs go. He's an undrafted free agent. He was cut 8 times before catching on with his 49er team, and it was a practice squad in 2016. He had 40 career carries before this year. 40. Mostert had a game. He had a game for the ages, really. At 29 carries, 220 yards, and 4 touchdowns in the 37-20 win. But more impressive than the 220 yards, it was a game that reminded me of Terrell Davis back in the day when he ran for the Denver Broncos and they beat the Packers also in Super Bowl 33 down in San Diego. This guy was given the shoulder. He wasn't trying to go down. He wasn't trying to run out of bounds to avoid the hit like Franco Harris would do back in the day. There was a couple of times where he would blast guys, and he's not the biggest guys, but he does have sprinter speed. Give me your thoughts on running backs that give the punishment more than Henry did, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if he was giving it more than Henry, Charlton. I witnessed a lot of guys wearing white jerseys that looked scared.
Yeah.
I didn't see any aggressiveness in that Green Bay defense. I saw a lot of defensive backs that were looking to go along for the ride. They weren't willing to hit anybody. They weren't even willing to hit a receiver.
Yeah.
I didn't even see linebackers really trying to make tackles, Charlton. That was one of the things that, we talk about the league becoming soft. And they talk about, well, you can't hit certain players a certain way. Charlton, there's nothing wrong with fundamental tackling, wrapping up. If you come in and you look at what the 49ers were doing for as fundamental tackling, they were tackling Jones by the legs. The Green Bay Packers defensive backs refused to go down low and tackle anybody.
Yeah.
They were all trying to grab for the shoulder pad. Anybody will look great. I mean, Mostert had an outstanding game. 220 yards.
Amazing.
4 touchdowns. That's the second most rushing yards in a playoff game, Charlton, behind Eric Dickerson, who had 248.
Yeah.
So he's in rare company. But he had the most combined touchdowns and rushing yards in a game in NFL history in playoffs. So what he did was put himself in the record books. But you got to give credit to that 49er offensive line. They were opening up gaping holes.
Oh, yeah.
And the receivers for the 49ers had a willingness to block downfield. He didn't get into the secondary and have free runs without those receivers making blocks. The tight end Usyk, as well as the tight end Kittles.
Yeah.
Everyone played a part in most of getting those yards, Charlton. But it was a great scheme by the head coach, Kyle Shanahan, to put him in that position.
Yeah, he was good. And in fact, Garoppolo didn't have his 7th pass until Mostert had over 200 yards rushing. And the fact that Kittles only had one catch in that game, that has a lot left in the tank, and they're going to need that in the tank for the Super Bowl. I want to get into a conversation that many people have, and I don't care what people think. Everybody can say their era was better. But when I watched, we were talking about Devontae Adams getting over the top of Richard Sherman. He did one time, but even when he gave up the long ball, it did not result in a score. So now in 13 playoff games, no touchdown scored on the great Richard Sherman. I don't even think Deion Sanders can say that, and I know he can't because Michael Irvin got him a couple of times. That has something to be said about the intelligence of a player that plays the game. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Richard Sherman had an outstanding game, but when he was beat by Devontae Adams. You also got to understand Aaron Rodgers didn't have the time to throw the ball deep to him.
Yeah.
The one pass that Richard Sherman intercepted, it was an overthrown ball. It wasn't that it was great coverage. He threw it into double coverage. Richard Sherman just happened to be on top of Adams on that play, if you go back and remember.
Yeah.
I would like to see Richard Sherman in the Super Bowl matched up one-on-one against Tyreek Hill. Nobody will take the chance of covering Tyreek Hill one-on-one. He will command double coverage. But if I'm Kansas City, I'm putting Tyreek Hill on him all over the field. Covering. Right now, you can't cover anybody in Kansas City because you got to pick your poison. They're going to need more than just that pass rush. But that's what allowed the secondary for San Francisco to play well. If you look at 41, I can't remember his name right now, he's playing better than Sherman.
Yeah.
People go after him, and he's picking off balls left and right, Charlton, knocking receivers down. Great coverage, man. Young guy can play football.
Yeah.
But, when we look at the coverage in the secondary, that's all facilitated from the defensive line. Those guys are putting constant pressure on opposing quarterbacks. You saw it against your cousin in Minnesota. You saw it against Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers looked flapped in this game. He just did not look comfortable at any point. And I don't know what it is. People, he had a lot of concussions over the past few years.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to blame McCarthy, saying that he was the reason for the Packers' struggle. No, it's Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I go back to a game they played the Rams last year in the Coliseum when the Cobb tried to bring the kickoff back, fumble it. And they said, well, he didn't give Aaron Rodgers a chance with the last 2 minutes on the clock to bring the Green Bay Packers back. So they discounted the first 48 minutes first 58 minutes that the Rams was giving it to the Green Bay Packers.
Yep.
And I didn't hear that last night from the broadcasters. Well, Aaron Rodgers is going to bring the Packers back. It's the fourth quarter now. They're going to go on a run. I don't hear the conversation about Aaron Rodgers that I hear about Patrick Mahomes unless they're in a commercial.
No, he had a big game passing, but he had to because they were coming from behind. And obviously, like I mentioned, I don't think nobody is what they used to be. He obviously has lost something. And whether he can get the ball downfield. This argument that I keep hearing, too, is that, the receivers can't get open. They make the same argument for Brady that they make for Rodgers. The receivers can't get open. And we'll talk about Kansas City on the second half. At some point in time, your receivers, they can't get open because when they are open, you're not getting the ball to them on time. A lot of NFL is about timing routes anyway. It's not about finding the guy open and then throwing the ball. But if the quarterback doesn't have the right timing, of course he's not going to be open, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Aaron Rodgers is fundamentally flawed. When you look at him, he has very poor mechanics about what he does. You look at him, how he moves around. He's not even recognizing the blitz. When he had a ball knocked out of his hand yesterday by a defensive back on the blitz, he's not recognizing it. His skill set is diminished in the NFL. As great as he's been, and we all want to see players play forever, but there comes a time. He reminds me right now of Steve Young late in his career after he had been concussed down in Arizona. That's what Aaron Rodgers reminds me of. I look at him, I look at the glassy-eyed look that he has, and once he gets hit in a game, he feels uncomfortable. Yeah. And he got hit several times. You could see that he was aware of the pass rush coming at him yesterday, and he was bothered by it. He had that Eli Manning look. Yeah. Eli Manning the past 2 years looked really scared and uncomfortable with the New York Giants. And I think right now Aaron Rodgers is closer to Eli Manning than he is to Drew Brees.
Yeah. Obviously, the Packers, they have a lot to address to go 13-3 in the regular season, and then obviously finishing up 14 and then 4 in the season.
But that 13-3 is fool's gold. Look at their division. Who was strong in their division? When you look at your cousin and Minnesota Vikings, they didn't beat but 2 teams all year long that had winning records.
Yeah.
You look at the Chicago Bears. They fell off a cliff. The Detroit Lions, I don't even know if they played in 2019.
Yeah, they
so
played.
When you look just within the division, that's 5 games that was given to them right there within the division.
Well,
now you go, they beat the Bears twice. They beat the Packers. They beat the Vikings. That's 5 games right there within the division that they won. Then you go outside and look at a couple other weak sisters that they played during the season, Charlton. It wasn't like they went out and dominated a lot of teams. Aaron Rodgers wasn't much better than Kirk Cousins was during the season.
Yeah, I still say 13 wins in this league. It doesn't matter who you are. Only a couple of teams did that. So they did earn that. They will also earn the number 30 overall pick in the 2020 draft. It's not about the draft, though. It's about getting guys that can come across the line that you can draft and trade for and make that happen. We're going to come up on the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. We'll take that time out. We'll come right back and finish up talk on the 49ers and the Packers. And then I want to get into what happened with Kansas City and the Tennessee Titans. Down goes Frazier, Big C. It was down goes Henry this time. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we're back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. And you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You were here. Welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can also follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Big C, what happened to Aaron Jones? I know he was another Aaron that was doing this thing, and Aaron had good numbers, but there was no doubt after the 49ers' second score, it was a field goal. They went up 10-0. They were just a better team, even though they let up a little bit in the fourth quarter, and Green Bay scored again to make it somewhat respectable. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Aaron Jones was a guy that Green Bay needed to live through, and they didn't. They got away from him early, Charlton. He was productive in running the ball, but Aaron Rodgers felt that he needed to be the guy in the game.
Yeah.
And so when you abandon your running game, the 49ers didn't abandon their running game.
No.
And you saw the results. Their quarterback only had to throw 8 passes in the game. And yet the Green Bay Packers here and Aaron Rodgers put the ball in the air 40-plus times, trying to keep pace. So when you get away from your comfort zone, it's proven, and it's been proven, if you look at the Green Bay Packers' 3 losses during the regular season and the playoff game, Charlton, you tried to lean on Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers just doesn't have it right now to put a team through that where he can get them over. The season started that way. If you look at their first game against the Chicago Bears, where they only scored 10 points, they were relying on Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Jones scored 19 touchdowns on the season, tied for the league's most. And he scored 1 in the playoff game.
Yeah.
Why didn't you get him more active in the game?
Yeah, he was having some traction running early, and they kept going away from it. But again, I think we're seeing declining quarterbacks, and we saw that Aaron Rodgers. They're saying they need to put some people around him. You can't build his arm, make it bigger, stronger, and faster like it was 5 years ago. So congratulations to the 49ers. It was great seeing guys like Jerry Rice and Steve Young. And just thinking about the 49ers, they've won enough championships. They won 5 championships in the organization. They're trying to go for number 6. But that's a proud organization. And to see the history of this organization since they left, Kezar Stadium, the great games that were played at Candlestick, Levi can really start a run of his own. And I wish them nothing but the best. I want to go down to...
Go back to this point with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
What has he done in the NFL since his second year as a starter? Where is he taking the Green Bay Packers since his second year as a starter in the NFL?
Well, they have had a couple of games, championship games, but they lost those games. They've only got to the Super Bowl 1 time. So he has done something, even though when they lose, it's somebody else's fault.
That Super Bowl championship was in his second year as a starter.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers tied a dubious record yesterday. He is the 4th NFL quarterback to lose 3 NFC championship games.
Yeah.
3 is the 4th quarterback to do that. So when people want to say, well, he's won a Super Bowl, yes, he did. But Danny White lost 3 NFC championship games.
Yeah.
Donovan McNabb lost 3 NFC championship games. There was one other quarterback, but he's the 4th quarterback to lose 3 NFC championship games.
Yeah, he really has. But as you know, the way the media is, if they win, it's Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. If they lose, well, he needs some more players around him. But if you're the guy getting the glory, sometimes you got to also take the pain too. But again, congratulations, 49ers, that organization. You look at Lynch, you look at Shanahan. They put that program together. It's taken some time, and they're not finished. They're still digging for gold. Gold was discovered allegedly in California by the city of Coloma, which is up near Sacramento. They found a lot more gold in San Francisco. They're digging for more gold. I didn't know there were gold mines in Florida, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the Gold Coast, that's what Florida is.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see if they can go down and get some of that gold from that aqua color water. Now I want to transition to where I believe they were saying it was about 17 degrees, and some people said about 6 degrees with the wind chill. in Kansas City, Missouri. And when people say they need a new stadium, that stadium is arguably, along with Seattle, the loudest stadium in the NFL, even more than dome stadiums. So what's the talk about needing a new stadium? What they really need, they got yesterday. The great Patrick Mahomes, a key figure for the Chiefs, completed 23 of 35 passes, 294 yards, and 3 touchdowns, Big C. The man was amazing, especially one of the runs that he had where he was probably going to go out of bounds, but decided he was too athletic to just give it up and run out of bounds. The last time the Kansas City Chiefs played in the Super Bowl, it was 1970. Andy Reid was 11 years old, and Patrick Mahomes was 25 years away from even being born, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's been 24 years since the San Francisco 49ers won a Super Bowl, Charlton, and it's been 50 years since the Kansas City Chiefs have won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
One of the things when I look at Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs, this is a generational thing that we're seeing. I know a lot of shows want to say, well, who they want to compare him to.
Nobody.
Why can't you compare some of those white quarterbacks or try to compare them to Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah.
Because you cannot find them. There's never been anything like Patrick Mahomes. It's just like with Steph Curry shooting threes.
Yeah.
We've never seen that in the NBA before. We've never seen Patrick Mahomes in the NFL because you haven't given black quarterbacks this type of opportunity before.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people say, well, if you plug another quarterback into that system with those receivers he has, no, I mean, you're going to tell me that the receivers that Deshaun Watson have in Houston are less than the receivers that Patrick Mahomes has in Kansas City? No. Will Fuller, DeAndre Hopkins, those guys, Stalwart, those guys are just as capable. It's Patrick Mahomes. We've never seen anybody that can throw the ball from any position. I know everybody was enamored with Lamar Jackson and his running this season. Patrick Mahomes runs just as well.
Yeah.
He just doesn't run as often. When he's leading his team in rushing, no one praises him. They still sit back and praise his arm, what he does, his uncanny ability to find open receivers at any spot on the field. You got to pick your poison when you're playing Kansas City. Do you rush 4? Do you rush 5 and try to play man coverage? Do you rush 3? You sit back, try to play zone?
Yep.
You're going to be in trouble regardless. You got 5 receivers that he can play as well as a plethora of running backs out of the backfield. This team is on fire.
They're on fire, and again, this kid, or young man, I still remember he had the knee. It was dislocated kneecap. They pushed it back in place, but he still had to rehab it, missed a couple of games with that. And they still came back. In fact, the first game he came back is when they lost that game to the Tennessee Titans down south, Big C. And that was, I believe, 35-32. They had a field goal block, so that's why they lost that game too. But Tennessee's a good team. But before we get into how great the Kansas City Chiefs are, and I refuse to rob a man of what he's done. You don't rob a man of what he's done, his work. He should be paid for his labor. And you look at Eric Bieniemy. I'm so tired of people saying, look at Andy Reid's offense. We saw Andy Reid's offense when he had Donovan McNabb. We saw Andy Reid's offense in the past, even when he had Alex Smith. This is Eric Bieniemy's offense because he's calling plays, and you don't see more than 5 feet away from Andy Reid. It's not Andy Reid's offense. Maybe I'm naive, but why isn't this man even given a chance for an interview after we talk about how great Patrick Mahomes is? There's a guy that calls the plays that makes him great, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about it. Matt Nagy just spent 1 year in Kansas City as offensive coordinator. He got the head coaching job with the Chicago Bears under Andy Reid. You also think about the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. I can't think of his name right now, the head coach of them, Frank Wright.
Yeah.
He did a year. He did a couple of years under Andy Reid. None of those guys were able to get Andy Reid to the Super Bowl.
Not at all.
Eric Bieniemy has done that.
Yeah.
Eric Bieniemy is a frowned upon from the mainstream media. They don't talk about the accolades of this young man because it's the relationship he has with Patrick Mahomes. You got 2 African-American men that see the glass through the same lens.
Yeah.
They've had the same plight in life, Charlton, being African-American men. Everybody wants to, in the media, wants to make an excuse, saying, well, his dad played pro sports, and so that's the reason why he's so comfortable playing the game. His dad didn't play football.
Right.
His dad played baseball.
Right.
His dad went to work every 5 days, as a player. He missed 4 games to play 1. Patrick Mahomes has to go out every game.
Yeah.
It's a different speed and mindset playing football. But Eric Bieniemy is able to mentor this young man from the ups and downs and what he has to deal with in the NFL through the media and players. He never is going to get the credit from the media. There's no cry out there for African Americans to get head coaching jobs in the NFL. Because if you can go somewhere off of this system, build the same type of system that you have in Kansas City. Frank Wright won a Super Bowl. Andy Reid hasn't won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So the person who got him to the Super Bowl is Eric Bieniemy. He ain't got there with Donovan McNabb, but Eric Bieniemy has gotten him back.
Yeah.
And if he wins the Super Bowl, the media needs to be celebrating Eric Bieniemy, not saying Andy Reid finally gets over the hump, winning a Super Bowl with the most wins to have never won a game.
Well, that's why God created Big C Sports, because we just ask people to Google it. Even if we're wrong, we're saying Google. Who stands up in front of a class, in front of the whole universe, and says, grade my work in front of everybody? Most people, they want to hide their results to their exam until they realize maybe they got an A, but they don't want to have their work graded in front of the whole universe. Big C Sports, we do it all the time, because if we're wrong, then we need to be held in check also. But if mainstream is lying to you, hold them in check the next time they bring that out and tell you that. Look at Andy Reid's offense. It's not his offense. Think about the great Patrick Mahomes also. The Chiefs traded up to draft this guy, first round in 2017. He was the last starter that took the Chiefs to their first AFC Championship game in 25 years. I think last time they were around that, I think Montana had a concussion in one of his games, Big C. But it's something about this young man that has, again, he came back on an injury. He had a dislocated kneecap. I've never had that happen. I don't know if you have. But to do that and to not show any fear, and that's what amazed me. When he took that run down the sideline and he could have stepped out of bounds, he was about maybe 4 or 5 inches from going out of bounds. He was right at the 5-yard line. He didn't run out of bounds. He didn't slide. There was about 23 seconds left before halftime. He took 3 hits from guys that are bigger than him, and he wasn't concerned about his knee. He's just that confident, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the regular season games that Patrick Mahomes has played in the NFL, he has thrown 78 touchdowns and 18 interceptions.
Wow.
No quarterback in NFL history has done that. So when they try to compare him, who he reminds people of, he reminds people of Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
He has set the bar as far as quarterbacks in the NFL. It is now held by an African-American, the bar for quarterbacks. You go look at those numbers. 78 touchdowns, 18 interceptions in 2 seasons, Charlton, as a starter in the NFL. So when people try to say, okay, what can we do? In the playoffs, he's thrown 8 touchdowns in 2 playoff games, Charlton. 8. We're talking about a young man that nobody can figure out.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care about who's on the other side of the line, Charlton. He doesn't care about what you throw at him. His intelligence level is what gets me more than anything else. I look at the intelligence that he possesses beyond his throwing ability.
Yeah.
Because his intelligence allows him to throw the ball in places that only he can.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that people don't talk about. People say, well, his arm strength, his ability. No, it's his intelligence. This young black African-American quarterback is the most intelligent quarterback in the NFL because he knows when to run, he knows when to throw deep, he knows when to throw short, he knows when to throw the ball away.
Yeah.
He knows what you're thinking on defense. He's 23 years old, and he has everybody figured out. Think about this. He's 23 years old, and he's going to the Super Bowl. This is the 4th youngest quarterback in NFL history to be going to a Super Bowl. And I didn't hear the media raving about Aaron Rodgers. I didn't hear the media raving about Jimmy Garoppolo. I didn't hear them raving about Ryan Tannehill. They're raving about Patrick Mahomes. But the problem that I have with their raves about Patrick Mahomes is that they're trying to compare him to white quarterbacks. He is not a white quarterback. He is an African-American quarterback who's been given an opportunity in the NFL.
Yeah, and just like a lot of coaches, and people say, well, why bring up his color all the time? Well, why bring up the lack of color when people don't get even a job interview? A lot of coaches, Patrick Mahomes, same situation. This is Martin Luther King's birthday. It's just we want opportunity for everybody. Could you imagine there was a day, and that day is still today, when people say, well, we don't want that kind of guy. We need someone like Aaron Rodgers who can stand back in the pocket and get sacked or fumble the football, or someone like Tom Brady who's won a lot of games, but he's not going to win a lot of games going forward. They'll get signed by somebody, and Rodgers will stay in Green Bay. And whether whether you have Brady stay in New England or not, he's never going to be what Patrick Mahomes is. Those days are in the past. I want to get your thoughts on something before we close out and just get into thought. I know we got 2 weeks to do this, so I want to get your thoughts on, going into the Super Bowl with the Chiefs and 49ers. I look at the Titans jumped to a double-digit lead twice in the first half, but they took a 17-7 advantage in the first half, and they didn't score again until just more than 4 minutes remained. The Chiefs held that superstar running back, Derrick Henry, 69 yards. He had 188 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Chiefs in Week 10. It's as if I think he only carried the ball like 4 or 5 times later in the second half, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I know people kind of get nervous when they fall behind, but he's the reason that they even got that far. What, they forget they had him on the team? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the Chiefs in this game, Charlton, in their 2 playoffs games, they were down by double digits in both games. And so this is a team, because of Patrick Mahomes, they don't worry about that.
Yeah.
But the key to Derrick Henry, and I said it prior to the game, you got to hit the guy. You got to tackle him low. You can't sit there and wait on him to get to the secondary. If you saw the Chiefs defenders, Charlton, they gang tackled Derrick Henry. They were not afraid to hit him. They knew if they stopped him, they stopped the Titans' offense. They weren't worried about Ryan Tannehill. You weren't putting your money on Ryan Tannehill to get you to the Super Bowl. You had all your eggs on Derrick Henry getting you to the Super Bowl if you were the Tennessee Titans. You did not put together a game plan, just like the San Francisco 49ers. The Tennessee Titans were in the same boat.
Yeah.
You did not put together a game plan for your quarterback to go out and win the game. You were putting it on the legs of your running game.
Yeah.
And the Tennessee Titans, they held, the Kansas City Chiefs held Tennessee Titans in check. Derrick Henry had less than 75 yards rushing in this game. You talked about the second half. He carried the ball 5 times in the second half for -1 yard.
Yeah.
-1 yard. That meant they hit him every time he thought about touching the ball.
Yeah.
That was their mindset. And that's what you have to do as a defense. When you go into a game and that team's strength is running the ball, you got to go in there and say, okay, we're going to stop the run.
Yeah.
You might beat us throwing the ball, but you will not beat us on your strong suit. That's running the ball. And you think about people that face the Kansas City Chiefs, they don't go there saying, we got to stop the run. We got to stop the pass. Then all of a sudden the run sneaks up on you, and all of a sudden they got 150 yards on the ground.
Yeah, it's an amazing team, and they're coming together better. They reinvested in their defense. You know how we opened the show talking about Aaron Rodgers, the decline of the great Aaron Rodgers, and mainstream media was saying, well, they need better receivers. They can't just have, Devontae Adams.
Go back to the Philadelphia Eagles, Charlton.
Yeah.
This was a team that was bringing people off the city bus to play in the game.
Yeah.
You look at what the Philadelphia Eagles did in the last 4 games of the season. They didn't have any receivers in their lineup.
No.
They got guys off the practice roster and everywhere else they could find. I think they picked up the trash man one day and brought him in for a tryout. But when you look at what Frank Wright was able to do with the Philadelphia Eagles, no one was saying they got to go out and get him better players. They got to get him more players to play with Carson Wentz. It was the next man up in Philadelphia. Greg Ward was a quarterback in college at Houston. He played receiver, caught touchdowns in each one of their playoff games. So when you talk about next man up, they were able to get the ball to their receivers. Aaron Rodgers is lacking that now.
Yeah, he's been lacking that now. So when we look at that game and just the environment of Kansas City, it's not a big media market. It's as large of a media market as Memphis is, Big C, but it's not as big as San Francisco, not as big as Miami. But there's something about the Chiefs fans that they will travel. I mean, they're hungry for something. I don't know how to even diagnose this game, but I can tell you this. If there's somebody down by 4 and you need to drive 80 yards to win, it better not be the 49ers. It could be Patrick Mahomes, but I don't put it in Garoppolo's hand to do that, not against Kansas City's team. I don't want to see a game that's called so that we have any nefarious things happening, because seeing African-American quarterbacks, sometimes that happens when you get to the Super Bowl. I know people say, what are you talking about? Well, just watch a lot of the games, the Cam Newton experience, since Doug Williams did a great job winning in his Super Bowl against John Elway.
Well, think about this, Charlton. There was a fumble by Aaron Rodgers in the game where the ball was knocked away from. Aaron Rodgers fumbled the ball twice. Aaron Rodgers made no effort to go after either one of those fumbles.
I know.
I recall in the Super Bowl when Cam Newton fumbled, and he didn't make an effort to go after. The media still chews up Cam Newton today.
That's right.
For not making an effort in the Super Bowl to go after a fumble when it was knocked away from him, and the Broncos returned it for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers had the same thing happen to him yesterday in the game in San Francisco. Had the ball knocked away from him by a defensive back, made no effort to go out and try to retrieve the ball. San Francisco scored. He also dropped the snap from the center, made no effort trying to retrieve the ball. San Francisco scored. The media was very kind to Aaron Rodgers, not making an effort to retain the ball for his team, just letting San Francisco have it with a short field and able to score again. They're still talking about Cam Newton, who fumbled in that same stadium back in 2014, I believe it was, 15, when the Carolina Panthers played the Denver Broncos. The media is still beating up Cam Newton, and Aaron Rodgers is saying, well, he's got to get better players around him.
Isn't that something? I was just bringing that point up, Big C. You got to stop reading my mind. But I don't want something like that to happen with the great Patrick Mahomes. And I know even going back to all the great players who just want an opportunity. I remember Eric Bieniemy when he played for the University of Colorado. He was a running back out of California, and he played at the University of Colorado under Coach McCartney, who got a lot of kids out of Southern California. Rashad Salam was one of those players that he got out of L.A. Just a lot of good talent that went to the Colorado Buffaloes back in the day. They were part of the Big Eight at that time. I know we talk about coaches, how they built their team around them. You know, Vrabel has a good thing going down in Tennessee, Big C. I really believe he does. And I just want to get your thoughts on his stance in Tennessee.
Well, you know, Vrabel did a tremendous job, but you also got to realize if the Houston Texans had played all their players in Week 17 of the season, the Tennessee Titans may not have made the playoffs. They had to win that game to get in. So they had 3 playoff games that they played in succession when you think about that. They had to win the last game of the season to get into the playoffs. And so when they knocked off the Baltimore Ravens, that wasn't a fluke, Charlton. That was their second playoff game. And then when they knocked off the New England Patriots, that was their third playoff game. So they basically run that table on playoff games. Got to the fourth game. That was their Super Bowl yesterday. They lost their Super Bowl yesterday. Kansas City Chiefs, you know, had the answer. Mike Vrabel came in one-dimensional, relying on Derrick Henry. He has some questions he has to answer at quarterback. Ryan Tannehill did a tremendous job taking over from Marcus Mariota. But do they move forward with Ryan Tannehill from this point on, Charles? No. He has proved that he's a capable quarterback handing off the football. But can he win that big game? He could not do it in Miami. He has not shown that he can do it in Tennessee. He had tremendous numbers, but when it came down to it and he didn't have that run game with Derrick Henry, and it was put on his back, he folded like a tent.
Give me your thoughts on the floor in Green Bay. I know 13-3 is a good record for regular season, but they were blowing out. I mean, they didn't make any adjustments from game 1 when they got beaten 37-8, I believe, in San Francisco. He really didn't make any improvements. How would you rate him, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you got to talk about LaFleur. He is a guy that, you know, who's the next genius, next man up. When he came into the NFL with the Green Bay Packers, he had a pat hand. Like I said, look at the division that the Packers are in. What's strong about that division? You got the Minnesota Vikings, Charlton. Like I said, they won 10 games. They beat 2 teams with winning records all year long. One of those was in the playoffs, okay? One was in the playoffs. So when you look at the strength of that schedule, like I said, 5 games that the Packers won in the division, 5. And then there's a couple games, Charlton, they won. The teams that had losing records also, they should have won those games. But when it came down to a team with a great pass rush, and just like you said, everybody's making excuses for Aaron Rodgers. No one's saying that Aaron Rodgers is culpable in the Packers losing. It's everybody else who couldn't, if the receivers couldn't get open. You got to get the ball to them. They were open. There were several times. I saw him miss Graham on a wide open when he threw it out in the flat. Graham was wide open down the seam. He didn't see him. He was tunnel vision. He was scared. Like I said, right now, he's closer to Eli Manning than he is to Drew Brees. LaFleur is going to take the blame. They're going to say he didn't have a great scheme. He did not make the adjustments. His quarterback did not make the adjustments. His defensive players were fearful of tackling players. Now, they could hit people when it was cold. When it was warm, they didn't want to have anything to do with it.
A lot of things change when the weather's tight. I'm looking forward to the 49ers and Chiefs, you know, going forward, Big C. And just, I know we're going to talk more about it after I make this little announcement. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network. In the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. The app that I really love are by Google. And Alexa, just say Google or Alexa. Play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. You know, just getting into the games, everybody has their own opinion. When I ask you, Big C, your thoughts, I'm hearing a lot of people saying, Big C, your thoughts, or they're saying your thoughts to the other, counterparts. But what I heard, the CBS Sports crew, they were doing the pregame in Kansas City Arrowhead Stadium. I'm not going to mention anybody's name, but I said, Big C's on TV again, and he didn't even tell me. I heard somebody saying, Drew Boudini Brown, rumble, young man rumble, and that's what they were saying, Patrick, that Derrick Henry had to do. They said he had to rumble, young man rumble. Big C, your thoughts on that?
Well, we have tremendous outreach, Charlton, from our listening audience all around the world, and especially in the United States on all other sports networks, whether it's television, whether it's radio. I'm glad that we can have a fingerprint on what other broadcasters do, that what we say is very important, and follow it tightly.
Yeah, at least we say that he used to always tell Ali. We didn't play the ride. We say he used to always tell Ali, the rope that with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. In the last 3 minutes, I want to just, whether happened, whether Tom Brady is going to come back to New England or not, there's sometimes you leave food in the refrigerator too long and you got to toss it out. It's best to replace it before it's spoiled. Not saying he's spoiled, but for Bob Kraft, you may see he's like a son, but you also have other men on that team that may be like a prodigal son also. If you're going to keep building in New England, you just saw what you got to go to in a couple of players that are playing in the playoffs, and they're playing in the NFC Championship game. Garoppolo, whether he would have been a fit in New England, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think he could have done any better than Brady. They're not really using him in San Francisco. And then you have out of not San Diego, but Los Angeles, I hear that they have a quarterback that's also, moving to Florida, Big C. The season's not even over in the great Phillip Rivers, talking about moving already to Florida, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, everybody has an opportunity to move. When you look at what NFL's players have financially, Charlton, Phillip Rivers is from the Florida area.
Yeah.
So that's just a move back home at this latter stage of his career. Everyone talking about Aaron Rodgers needed more weapons. Well, Tom Brady's always needed more weapons, ever since he's been in New England. This is not a guy who's had a plethora of number one draft picks. When you look at receivers in the playoffs that the New England Patriots passed over, you look at DK Metcalf in Seattle, the kid Brown from Tennessee. The New England Patriots passed over these guys, Charlton. They could have been New England Patriots, and both of these players, in the 1,000-yard neighborhood as rookies. Yeah. There's many other receivers that the New England Patriots have passed on. So it's not about Tom Brady. I would take Tom Brady in a heartbeat if I'm the New England Patriots or any other franchise is looking for a quarterback. He was at the fight Saturday night.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it. If he goes to the San Diego Chargers, and I don't know if he wants to play Patrick Mahomes twice a year in the regular season, but he has a team that will go double-digit wins in San Diego. He could win 12 games in
Los Angeles,
in San Diego with that Chargers personnel that they have, the receivers that they have, Williams and Allen. You got Gordon in the backfield as well as the other kid, number 30. Tremendous players, and the defense can play football in San Diego.
Yeah.
So I think if Anthony Lynn's trying to get a quick fix for the next 2 years, it'd be a great place to be, as well as Gronky's got the new stadium down there, Charlton.
Yeah, in LA,
if the Chargers need to sell seats, Tom Brady's going to have a packed house for 2 years.
There was a fight over the weekend, McGregor and Cowboy Cerrone. He said, hey, let me just beat you up for 41 seconds. We'll all make a lot of money. I don't know who paid for that, but it takes longer to go to the bathroom than that fight lasted. What a fiasco, UFC. Final thought, Big C, some notable free agents, Tom Brady, Jameis Winston. You have Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, Tannehill, Mariota, Teddy Bridgewater, and Eli Manning. It's a great football. I love football, and I can't wait until we get to Super Bowl 54. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, With all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charles, you're going to have to unwind for 2 weeks and figure out what we're going to do without having a football game. But ladies hoops and college basketball is really rearing it up. College hoops, when we look at the men's side, Charlton, last year was all about Zion. I got to open up a newspaper and see who's playing.
You got to see who's playing, but you can always find out for the Super Bowl 54 coming up every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, where you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super Martin Luther King Day.